Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township for December 5th, 2023. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, if Pastor Tim Lowy could open us up in prayer. Appreciate you being here.
Merry Christmas from the members and friends of Christ the King. We love being in Bedford Township. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him. Without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and that life was the light of men. And the Word was made flesh and made His dwelling amongst us. We beheld His glory, glory as of the only begotten, sent by the Father, full of grace and truth. Father in heaven, we thank you for being with us, and we ask you to regard your people of Bedford Township and the leadership thereof. We ask you, Lord, to dispel the darkness of our sinful hearts and bring the full light of your presence amongst us, that we may make good decisions, wise decisions based on what's best for the people of God and the people of Bedford and the goodness of our state. We ask you, Lord, to be with this group tonight. In Jesus' holy name we pray it. Amen. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the communion of the Holy Ghost be with all of you. Amen.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, number 2 is approval of the agenda.
I'm being asked that we pull Jim Jacobs Architect Maintenance Building Project Agreement. Apparently Jim has not seen the changes. We would like to see them before we approve it.
From my understanding, his secretary sounded like he would be fine with the changes.
Well, I spoke with his secretary, Val, today, and she he's hunting in Colorado, so he's unable to communicate because he's up in the mountains somewhere. But what she said to me is he respectfully requests her last opportunity to communicate, that we wait and discuss it when he's able to. Now, I understand. I wrote the changes, and I wrote them to be fair. And I understand that the board is likely to adopt those changes because the instruments of service prepared by the architect should be owned at the conclusion of the project by the township. But I also think, in fairness, since he has requested to be present at the meeting and maybe even meet with us next week, he'll be back next week, before the next meeting, that we should do that. We should defer to that request out of fairness to him because he's not here and he can't be here.
Yeah.
So I requested, I called Trudy and requested that we remove it from the agenda for tonight to give him the opportunity. But at the same time, my advice will be that at the end of the day, we own the instruments of service, which are the drawings and the plans. But you see that I put in there that we would only use those for this building and our maintenance of this building and work we do on this building, and they wouldn't be transmitted to any third party. So I can't imagine that wouldn't be acceptable, but again, that's my request.
Okay, do we have support? Support. Okay, motion supported, Mr. Bruning. Any more discussion? Could you call the roll?
Are you thinking that I made the motion? I was just asking to pull.
We didn't actually have a motion.
We didn't actually.
Oh, I thought it was motioned by you.
No, I was just asking that we were.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with item 7A removed as requested by James Jacobs.
Support. Okay, motion supported, Mr. Bruning. Any more discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Ms. Jandisek?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 3, the consent agenda. The agenda committee recommends to approve and place on file A, minutes from the November 21st, 2023 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board. B, 2024 Bedford Township Board meeting schedule.
Make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Support. A motion supported by Mr. Bruning. Any discussion? Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Berger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 4, presentations, update on the Monroe County Drain Commissioner policy change. Jody? Brad and Barry, you can come up too. Sure, there's going to be a lot of questions for everybody.
Mr. Goldsmith is going to start with this comment, and then if there's any further comments the board may have that Mr. Goldsmith can't answer, then Mr. Bushman's here and Mr. Weiss and from Annington Smith and the planning department. And I'll let Mr. Goldsmith speak on that.
Well, we better have some questions for him. Spent money for him to be here.
So I'll roll it out for you. For years and years, our drain commissioner, in his capacity as county agency, has overseen basically the South County water system and its installation in new subdivisions, platted subdivisions, and of recent condominium type subdivisions, site condominiums, and other private type of developments. He has continued, and his staff have continued to review and approve plans for water and sewer, and then to continue to oversee and basically be responsible for maintenance of those systems on the private side, just as with platted subdivisions. So within the last few months, the drain commissioner revealed to the township, and this is countywide, not just Bedford, but I think it impacts Bedford more than any other township within the county because we have the most continuous and continued growth for residential housing developments. And developers within our community have in many instances chosen to do condominium developments as opposed to platted subdivision developments, which require state approval, and the roads are dedicated to the public. The road commission takes over the roads, and our county agency, their drain commissioner, to maybe oversimplify it, takes over the oversight of our water system and our sewage system, the Bedford Township sewer system. So they have decided that it would be in the drain commissioner and county agencies' best interest to no longer maintain those systems. So they'll take it up to where the system, the water and the sewer, connects to the private development, and after that, it will be essentially on the developer to install those systems, water and sewer, and to maintain them. Now, from a practical standpoint, what's going to happen is that when a private development is built out, it'll be turned over to the Lot Owners Association or the Condominium Association. And someday down the road, when those systems start to have maintenance issues or they fail and they need to be repaired or portions of them need to be replaced, it is going to be on those lot owners associations or the condo associations and not on the public entity to service, maintain, and repair those systems. I can see down the road that it's going to be an issue, and so the township has to plan for this, and we have to work on our ordinances. And my primary concern as your legal counsel is to make sure that you do not assume liability with respect to these private systems. We've experienced with roads, it's been that way since the inception of these condominiums, because the road commission is not legally required to accept the roads. In a platted subdivision, they are, and they do, but not with private systems. So we are, I heard somebody say before the meeting, this is a big deal, and it is a big deal. And they want this policy to go into effect, or they've told us this policy is going to go into effect January 1st. So it won't be retroactively applied. The private condominiums and the private subdivisions that have been built out before, they will be continued to be maintained by the county agency. And ones that are currently in the pipeline and that the construction pipeline and plans have been submitted will be grandfathered in, and they will continue to be maintained by county agency. But the new ones beyond that, according to their policy, will be it'll be privately maintained. It will be up to first the developer and then ultimately the condo association or the lot owners association.
So if somebody's in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, they might not get phase 4 to be public?
If the plans haven't been submitted before the end of the year, that's my understanding, that that final phase will be private and will not be public and will not be maintained by the drain commissioner in his capacity as county agency. Now, Trudy and Jody have been working diligently on this to try. It's a work in progress. We just were notified. It wasn't an option. Some have said, well, are you going to let them do it? Well, we don't have the authority. We don't have oversight over the drain commissioner in his capacity as county agency. If he makes this determination and he goes forward with this, which they've said they are, then it's going to be up to us to develop our policies and procedures and ordinances to ensure that we're protected as a township going forward. And Jody has been working very diligently in that regard.
As to what? When you say working diligently, like going to county commissioners' meetings? Are we trying to get, what are we doing?
The county...
Because I just got notified when I got the packet, and you say the township was notified. Who was notified?
We've had 3 meetings planning. Trudy and Krista have been there. I've been there. My partner Tom Graham has been there.
I was meeting with. I would have thought that I would have been notified or been at least invited to the meetings, because I would have went to the county commissioners and Masonic and drain commissioner, and I mean,
they don't have anything to do with it, Paul. Really, the county commission. Now, they've reached out. The county commissioners don't have anything to do with it.
I know they don't. I know the drain commissioner's on his own, is separately elected. I'm not acting like I don't know that. I'm saying there's power in those people, and to make phone calls and say, hey, why are you doing this to our citizens? They're going to be affected by it.
Sure they will. They have, but just today I received notification, and Barry and I spoke, and there was a meeting that I went to before coming to the meeting tonight, where Mike Bosonic, in his capacity as the CFO, and the chairman of the County Board of Commissioners are taking a look at it, but they understand that the drain commissioner is an elected official. Years ago, the Board of County Commissioners appointed the drain commissioner as county agency, and that's statutory. Mm-hmm. And whoever the elected drain commissioner is and has been over these many years has undertaken the responsibility for, in our case here locally, South County Water, and we're part of that consortium, and for the Bedford Township sewage disposal system. So it's not like the Board of County Commissioners can come in and say, hey, you can't do this.
I'm not saying they can, but I'm saying enough people call and complain and say, why are you doing this? They start to tend to listen a little more. Has Eagle been notified? Does Eagle know what's going on?
Yes.
What do they think
your
about it?
Your engineering consultant, Mannequin Smith, through Barry Bushman. He's here tonight. He can speak on it. I don't want to speak for him. He has reached out to Eagle. He has reached out to other state agencies and has had conversations on this subject. My concern is, I'm going to just let you know right now that if this policy goes forward and the drain commissioner does what he says he's going to do, that we may have to adopt a moratorium on further private development until we get things sorted out. Now, I haven't had discussions with any of you about that, but that could be a possibility until we get things sorted out. My major concern, I think Trudy and Krista, who have participated, and Jody, is that the township not have liability and oversight. We're not equipped to oversee the water system. We're not equipped, nor have we ever overseen the sewage disposal system when it comes to repairing, maintenance, or extending it.
So if they're in a development and they don't have the proper funds to fix a main break that ends up costing $250,000 or whatever, what do? Do they come to us for an SAD? Do the drain commissioners step in? It's a health and safety to the community.
The drain commissioner will not step in if they...
So who's going to monitor to make sure they have funds, the proper funds?
The developer. It's going to start with the developer. It really is.
And then after that? After it's done?
It's going to be turned over to the lot owners association or the condo association.
Sounds like a great idea. We can't even get bushes trimmed and roads maintained with crack seal, more or less.
Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just the messenger. Don't shoot me.
I know, but
so from that standpoint, don't think we haven't raised those questions.
That's what I wanted to make sure, because I would have.
Well, rest assured that every question you just raised and many more have been raised on this very issue, because practically what I see happening down the road, when people buy a condominium unit within a development, most people don't read the fine print, and they don't know that they're going to be responsible 10, 15 years down the road for their water or their sewer if this policy goes through. People are going to have to be educated. Developers are going to have to set aside money. I think Barry's had conversation with the state regarding that. These projects are going to somehow have to be bonded, or there's going to have to be money set aside and available for these repairs, because they will be completely private, just like the roads are, but it's going to be more than that. Part of what the drain commissioner has said is that in these private developments, the same standards that are employed in a platted subdivision, and Barry and I talked about this earlier today, where you have corridors for utilities, where there's sufficient area and space for water, sewer, cable, underground electric, and so it's not like our drain commissioner said. When you dig into it, it's not spaghetti. You know where all these things are. They've said we don't want to maintain that anymore because the corridors for utilities are smaller, and one way to approach this, and Barry and I spoke about this, is that we employ the same standards in a private development, a condo development, that we do in a platted subdivision. So we have to enlarge those utility corridors. We should do that and apply those same standards, and we can do that by ordinance. But we never got to that point in a discussion. So
I don't think you're going to see many developers coming forward with private developments anymore. In my opinion, I'm more concerned about the developments that are already here that have more plats to go.
The ones that are done, they'll be continued to be serviced by the Drain Commissioner County Agency. The ones that have gotten plans in or get plans in before the end of the year, they will be serviced by the county agency. The ones that are out in the future, by their policy, they will not.
So was this original meetings, were they, hey, we're doing this, or was it, hey, what's your thoughts, or like what did it look like?
We are doing this. They let us know we are doing this.
Did they say why?
Yeah. One of the reasons given was that we no longer want to go in and maintain these private condominium projects because, to quote a term that was used, you dig in there and it's spaghetti. You don't have dedicated utility corridors that are large enough to accommodate water, sewer, cable, underground electric, etc. So
Was there any rules laid out for this? Is there anything on paper from them?
From the
Drain
drain?
Commissioner's office about this new change that we could read up on? And
Well, it's pretty simple. The policy is, as of January 1st, 2024, we are no longer going to maintain private developments, condominiums, PUDs, anything that's private. We're not going to review plans. It might be a cursory review. That's why we got our engineers involved, because, I can see the township's not equipped to do it. We're going to have to have our engineers do it, and that cost is going to have to be passed on to the developer. And the costs can be, well, Barry cited an example of a meter pit. I think it was a meter pit that was $200,000 to install. The costs are going to go up for the developers. And then the developers aren't going to stand there in perpetuity and stand behind this product. They're going to do their work. They're going to get in. They're going to sell their product, and they're done, and it gets turned over to the associations. Then it becomes their problem. Mm-hmm. So somebody said it's a big deal. It is a big deal.
that was me that said it at the time.
Well, you're dead on. It's a big deal. So Barry's here if you want to hear from him. Jody, I probably stole all her thunder.
Barry or Jody, or doesn't sound like we have any answers.
Down to it, I can see a lot of building coming to a halt in the future, but 20 years from now, nothing's going to happen right now, but 20 years from now, Phil, when nobody on this board will be here, and the lawsuits start coming in, I mean, we're going to see some legal challenge to this, I would think.
Well, I can see that, and that's why it's important for us as a township to construct ordinances to try to insulate us from liability as best we can. If developers choose to continue with condominiums and PUDs or developments that are private, there's going to be an additional cost to them. We're going to pass the liability to our engineer and say, it's your responsibility on our behalf to review plans, approve plans, seal plans, inspect and make sure, and then have people on site to make sure these systems are properly installed. And that's going to drive the cost up substantially. The alternative is the developers say, well, we don't want anything to do with this. Let's go back to traditional platted subdivisions where the Drain Commissioner's county agency will undertake the responsibility.
If you look at it, what's the benefit of going private to the developer or the homeowner? Why wouldn't you go public at this point? Because that was one of the perks of private. Why not? They're still doing the same things.
If I was king of Bedford Township, it would all be public anyhow. But over the years, it's been more cost efficient and faster for developers to develop condominium units. And to be quite frank, it's a commodity that's been that our residents have liked and they bought into. Our population is getting older. They like the concept of having condominiums. They like, site condominiums. They like that because there's less maintenance for them. But with that comes cost, and that cost is about to go up.
Well, if they wanted to slow it down, they probably succeeded in that. So you guys have anything you want to add? Angus Smith, Joey?
I think one of the big things that I see, and Phil touched on a little bit of this, about the envelope for these utility companies to come in, and again, if you dig, they say it's like a bowl of spaghetti which you're trying to feed between the noodles. I think one of the things, because these are not true condominiums, what the developers have done is gone into the site condominium, nothing more than a technical term, because you're not sharing driveways, you're not sharing common walls. Your title is a site condominium, but they got a different standard than a platted subdivision. Number one, they reduced their lot sizes. They reduced their overall envelope. So what they've done is they've been able to squeeze more lots within a development, and they also, just like where I'm at, they weren't forced to put curbs in. So there's a lot of things that they end up saving money. They probably were able to sell an extra, depending on how big the development is, another extra 5, 10, 15 lots were able to be put in because of it. And I think the only way that the developers are going to survive if this goes through is they're going to have to go back to a platted subdivision. They're going to have the full road standards with all the curbing. They're going to have larger lot sizes, everything else. Obviously, it's going to all be passed on to the consumer in the long run. But I think that's probably the biggest reason that the builders have gone this route over the past probably what do you think, Phil, 8-10 years that they've started this?
Probably longer than that, that they've been doing it. So wouldn't you think, Trudy? So yeah, it's become popular, and the product has been popular. And we haven't had to be concerned about who's going to oversee the plans and the installation and the maintenance, because the county agency has done that in the past. Now we're kind of at a crossroads. We have to deal with this. We have to deal with it in a smart way to limit or eliminate liability for the township. And I said it at the Brad and everybody from our township engineer was there that needed to be there. Barry, on one occasion, I just said, well, we're going to pass that responsibility, that liability onto you, and you're going to charge for it, and that cost is going to get charged on to the developer, and the developer is going to pass that cost on to the end user, to those people they sell homes to, condominium units to, whether it be site condominiums or another type of product. So, Barry, have I misstated or Brad misstated anything, or would you like to add to this? And I don't want to overlook Jody.
You did a great job.
I don't know about that, but the board needs to know this.
I'll probably let Brad talk first, because I probably should be talking more under public comment, given the fact I'm about 99.9% retired now. So, but I'll let Brad speak to some of this.
Phil, I think you gave a great summary, great overview of kind of the anticipated impacts. I don't really have much to add to that. If anybody's got any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them, but I think that was a great summary.
I will say, though, and I've spoken with several of you independently, my concern is that condominiums are simpler, they're more expedient to develop. That's why the developers have typically gone to those. It takes several months to get a plat through Lansing. A condominium, you can get a review and approval within a couple months and get it recorded. So obviously the process is much simpler, and there's more flexibility. But with that flexibility came the problems. When you have these corridors for development, the Drain Commission basically has two big problems. One is their manpower. They've got a lot of retirees. They're short on manpower. Two, a lot of them are retiring. And three, they go into these condominiums where essentially, Phil said it very well, you reduce the size and compress everything, and all of a sudden you have a corridor for sewer and water, and then all of a sudden it's like, where do I put my gas? Where do I put the electric? Where do I put the cable? I can tell in our condominium, I don't know how many times our cable was cut just by putting utilities in, because they're almost on top of some of the other utilities. So these are the type of problems that should be worked through, that are also giving the Drain Commission maintenance crews the headaches. So they've got a legitimate concern. There's no doubt about it.
I think one thing I would add to that, Barry, too, is on top of those other issues that they've identified, it's an aging infrastructure. And with a continued decline in that infrastructure and limited resources to kind of continue to maintain them, that's a challenge moving forward.
So they're going to have a legitimate issue. The issue I have, or that I see as an engineer, is that all of a sudden permit requirements, Eagle will step in and have different requirements now than the typical permitting process. If it's a private system, we just worked on another developer with a couple of developers that are very well known to township, but not in this community, where we had to file a Part 41. The developer was required to actually estimate a 5-year maintenance fee and repair fee and put those money in escrows up front before he would even get a permit. So that cash is cash up front by the developer, and that has to be in perpetuity. So as those funds are used, they're replaced. So those conditions will be imposed by Eagle and placed upon the developers going forward. So Eagle will change some of their permit requirements if these are private systems. Some of the other requirements, for instance, as we've been talking about, is once that system becomes private, it can no longer be connected. A public system can't be connected to it. So, I don't know, Brad, you can relate the story of a recent condo we had.
Yeah, no, well, actually, in Frenchtown Township, we had a similar situation where there was a site condominium that extended public utilities. Now, granted, it was public, so it wasn't the same issue. But had they been private, they had a window of opportunity to connect up the future phases. Well, they missed that window of opportunity. It was a non-issue because it was a public system. But in the situation here in Bedford, moving forward with this policy change, if that private system is in place and that time period lapses for the next subsequent phase, you can't connect private to private. So that proposed development would not be able to be constructed, and frankly, it'd be wasted land. It would be landlocked. So that's an impact.
The other thing is that if it goes from public to private system, you can never connect a public system back into a private system. So if, for instance, you tried to loop a water main system, because that's what we tried to do for pressure and quality of the water system, all the systems in these new condos will be dead-end systems. They'll have to be flushed and the like to maintain water quality. And you couldn't even provide a loop system back in without backflow preventers and the like. So there are a lot of issues that we're going to have to discuss and work through, and we have had some conversation to date with Eagle, but there's even more. I had a 2.5-page memo I've developed, and I just forwarded that to Eagle this afternoon so they could offer input and give us some better direction, because it's a big issue.
Okay, any more questions, comments?
You're talking about liability for the township, and that's what we need to focus on, is protecting the township in the future. And Paul hit it on big time. This goes through and a new private condo goes in, and 10, 15 years down the road, they have a major issue and the funds aren't there. Who has that been addressed? Who is going to pay for that? These citizens just going to be without water, other services, or, I mean, that's a huge issue down the road. Are they going to sue the township because the township didn't step in? And I'm talking future.
Yep, and we're concerned about that, and that's why we have to hire and rely upon our professionals to review plans that are submitted by the developer, approve those plans as being appropriate for that development, and to ensure that, like Barry said, Eagle requires this bonding mechanism so that there's money there to repair and replace as necessary, because as Brad said, these systems, they don't last forever. And there will come a time where they need to be maintained, where they need to be repaired. So in our ordinances, we have to make it clear that this is a private system, that it is not maintained by any public agency, including county agency, including Bedford Township, that it is the responsibility first of the developer to comply with whatever we choose to put in our ordinance. It will be overseen by our professional engineers to whatever extent that we develop, and that any future maintenance, repair costs, or whatever will be borne, again, first by the developer and then ultimately by the Lot Owners Association. And if they don't plan appropriately and they don't put money in escrow, well, in the first case, when it comes to Eagle, they don't get a permit unless they have that escrow built up to an appropriate amount. But beyond that, they're going to have to keep replenishing those funds so that that money is available. If we do all those things, then we limit our liability, because we're letting them know, and it's in our ordinances, that because of the policy adopted by county agency, this is a private system and you are responsible. We're not going to hire people engineers and have them on staff to review plans and to inspect during construction and to seal plans and to give the okay at the end of the project and as-built plans. We're not going to do that. We don't have the ability or the resources to do that. Not in this unit of government. It's got to be passed on to our professional engineers who we trust, and they're going to pass their costs on to the developer. It's going to I don't know, it might make these private lots and private developments and condominium units out of reach as it relates to affordable housing. Mm-hmm. So,
and I do have one other concern that, that I had living in a condominium. Let's say we're only 2 years down the road and there's adequate money in a fund to repair this. We have a water main break, public water or a private water main. They call drain commission. Drain commission says private. It's not ours. It's called township. It's not ours. I know how difficult it is to get condominium people lay people that even understand anything, really understand water, sewer, or even know how to call a contractor, know how to deal with a contractor. And you're going to get some retired guy or gal that is going to go, now what do I do? Who do I call? Drain commission may pass on and say, here's the list of approved contractors. They're going to go, hey, I don't know what to do. They'll call a contractor. Who's going to observe that repair? I mean, I'm concerned over health, safety, welfare. Whoever repairs that, I mean, do they chlorinate it? Do they flush it properly? All of a sudden, you've got 50 people downstream that's drinking contaminated water. And I just see a potential there unless we figure a solution. I mean, these HOAs are no more prepared to take over a private water system than the man in the moon. And it's a legitimate health, safety, welfare concern. And I don't have a good answer.
I guess I would look at it as the same as Joe's house. I mean, Joe's has a main break, past the, right away or wherever the drain commissioner goes, it's on him.
Yeah, I mean, if you have
if they do a bad job and Joe gets sick, Joe goes and sues them.
Well, I'm just saying, if there's a main break in the road, obviously somebody has to go out and first of all, repair it.
Right.
The method of the repair is sewer lines are one thing. You can, flush or get a plug back up. Yeah, you might have some backup in somebody's house or something like that. But water especially, I mean, if you have a break in the system, there's specific methods to chlorinate that main and make sure that the water that ultimately gets flowing through that line is pure and clean. And if it's not properly repaired and maintained, those people that are turning on that tap downstream of the repair are drinking who knows what was ever in that trench. And all of a sudden you have somebody you get 20 people getting sick. I just say these are things we have to address and figure out a way to address. And
but has the drain commissioner been notified? I mean, has anybody met with Dave Thompson? It's ultimately come from Dave.
But Dave won't really have a handle in it anymore if he basically washes.
I'm saying with all these issues that we have.
I think I'm sending that same memo as to him that I've developed and say let's all work together jointly with Eagle, with the Drain Commission, with the township to try to, with Manick and Smith, to everybody work together to try to figure these solutions out because
that's what I'm saying. In the last 2 months or whatever we've known about this, has Dave been notified or talked to about any of these issues?
Yes.
Okay, and what's his answer?
So they contacted us and they came to us and we had a meeting.
Dave Thompson.
Tim Sergo and Doug Link from the drain office came and made a presentation to us. I don't know if Brad, if you were at that one or not, but
I was not at the initial one.
Okay, so that was the initial one, and they rolled out for us, we're changing the policy, and here's why we're changing the policy. And Tim Sergo, who is very well versed in this, was the spokesperson. And Doug Link, I don't think Doug was at the initial one, but he came to a subsequent one from the drain office to explain why. So And all those concerns that you raised and other people that Barry raised were presented to them.
And they had answers to them?
And they gave answers as to why they weren't going to do it any longer. And I think it was very...
But they gave answers to the questions like that we just had?
Yeah, the answer was, it's private, so it's going to be the responsibility of first the developer.
And those specific questions that were asked, they didn't have answers to, like what you just said, with the potential for people getting sick and who's going to do the work, and
those types of questions about waterborne illness weren't raised. It's pretty much implicit, though, that, and we're thinking whenever you said you simplified it by talking about Joe's system fails. I have a well. If my well gets worked on, if my contractor doesn't know enough, at least I know enough, that well has to be chlorinated, and you follow health department standards before you can use that as potable water.
I hope that's what it is. Like I said,
so,
but I don't know.
So if a contractor on an approved list comes out to do work on it, we trust that they would know how to properly chlorinate that system and do it. But Barry's right. Mom and pop who live in a condo and who happen to get elected president of the condo association 15 years from now, they have a water main break, they're not going to know, unless they're an engineer, they're not going to know how to deal with that. I don't want, and we shouldn't, throw the drain commissioner under the bus here. And Barry stated very well why. They gave what they believe to be legitimate concerns about manpower, and you know, the other way to look at this is if they continue as county agency to oversee water and oversee sewer, I raise this issue. Who's going to pay for it? The county? Are you going to give them the resources to buy more backhoes, to put more employees on that are knowledgeable about these maintenance issues? The answer was no, the ratepayers are going to have to, they're going to have to pay for that. And Krista just gave an expression that that's going to be a tough pill to swallow, and tough for the ratepayers to understand why we're raising their rates for maintenance purposes. The other issue is the utility corridors that have been made much smaller. I wish that we could get together and address these issues and come up with a plan that would allow our county agency, who is very well versed to do it, to continue to do it. I don't know that that will happen. They've stated what their policy change is going to be. They have legitimate reasons for doing what they're doing. And if they continue down that path, which right now we believe they are, then we're going to have to deal with it. We, as Bedford Township, will have to deal with it to protect us, to protect the township, because we're no longer going to be able to rely.
Well, I think one of the main things to fight for is like what you mentioned, was the public to private. These guys that have all the money and the infrastructure and the property, everything invested in these developments, and now they're going to be stopped potentially.
Well, they're going to.
Two months isn't much time to get.
They have that knowledge, and they know what they're dealing with. They're going to have some hard decisions to make. You know, are we what method of construction are we going to employ? Barry's dead on. You know, condos are attractive because the time frame is limited compared to a platted subdivision, because you have to go through all the state requirements to get there, and it takes a lot longer. There's been a movement among townships and among the state to try to streamline that, our state legislators. I don't know how successful they've been. I think, you know, there's been that movement. There's been a lot of talk, but government at the state level sometimes moves slowly. It's not, okay, it's your fault. This is reality, and we have to deal with it.
Well, I think it would have been nice for our elected official to maybe come to a board meeting and we could ask these questions and take our time. Sounds like it's just being shoved down our throat. Hey, here's the change, 2 months, get your guys together. I mean, that's the way I'm seeing it.
It's
No, I don't want, I guess I am throwing you under the bus, Dave. You should have, I'd like a meeting to kind of, know what's going on a little bit.
We've had meetings, they've been conducted here, and it's gone through our planning department because Jody is our frontline person when it comes to dealing with our ordinances.
Can I just say,
dealing
in
with
the
our
future, if we have
contractors.
stuff this big of a deal, I would like to be let know ASAP. That way I can, as the supervisor at the township, go to work on these things. Because I don't know, I mean, I'm not saying you're not doing anything, Jody, but there's a whole different angle I would take with it. And it's not her fault. She reports to you, but I would have liked to have known, so I could go after it.
And when it first came around, all they said was, we need to talk to you about some policies. They didn't tell us what it was about. So we went to that meeting and we were just flabbergasted by it. And then we went on defense mode. How are we going to protect the township? And that's where we went from there, because we were told this was happening. Not this might happen, or we're going to give you a chance. No, this is going to happen January 1.
And the reason I was included is because with me overseeing the sewer billing department, I wanted to make sure policy changes, they weren't changing anything with sewer tapping fees and permitting process that I have to oversee and make sure that Amy or in my department has to deal with. So that's why I was brought in.
We have to remember, this is a whole county. They're not just hitting Bedford. They're hitting the whole county.
Policy
Every
is countywide.
township.
Yep, countywide. It probably impacts us more because of our development here, but it's countywide. So everybody's going to have to deal with it.
So Phil, I hate to cut you off, been trying to jump in here. I mean, we've got so many questions, so many things that cannot be answered or not answered tonight. You made a very good point. We've got 27 days until January 1st hits. I think you made a very good point that says Bedford Township is going to have to put a moratorium in place temporarily, at minimum, when it comes to these private developments. Because if we can't answer and tell a developer what they can do, cannot do, what they're going to be liable for, and what we're definitely not going to be liable for, and not have it all drawn out in our ordinances, in our writing, we could still get caught in a big quagmire. So we need to think about that temporary moratorium and give us the time to meet with these agencies. And if Barry's got Eagle involved too, and other ones, they've got to help give us some answers, and maybe they can help direct us in a path that says these are the things that could impact, besides saying, well, you just pass it all on to the developer and then the money comes from the developer and then the buyers. Give everybody, I don't even think all the builders probably don't all know that this is coming at them yet. Especially, I would hope that anybody that's got plats that are already started and plans that are maybe looking at phase 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, I would hope that those guys already know from the Drain Commission what's going on.
We've been advised that they have in fact been advised and been given the opportunity. And please get your plans in before the end of the year, and you'll be grandfathered in, and it'll be public. But anything after that will be private. We
were advised they were going to work with those builders who are already in the middle of.
Hopefully they work with them, because I think right now I don't see that they're not going to work with us. Our deadline is January 1st. I can see that. So we're going to have to work with ourselves here and try to come up with our protections to make sure that, again, we don't get caught in the middle of that quagmire. Otherwise, we're not only going to have people mad at us, we're going to have major issues from the residents of Bedford. And I think, like I said earlier, I think the big thing is the developers are going to have to probably just go away from it. They're going to have to go back to the platted subdivision.
You got to keep in mind, the only issues we're going to have is the new person comes in and wants to start a new private development. There's where the issue starts.
Or you, like
we
you said,
already know what we know.
Or the phases.
Issues there for the people that already have the developments that are going into a new phase if they don't get it done. But moving forward, I don't foresee anybody coming. I haven't heard of any new developments. you know, like I said, I think you're going to see the private developments go to the wayside. Personally, moving
Probably.
forward. But okay, anybody else have anything? Thanks for being here, guys.
The one final thing I would say, and I don't want to add any more questions or confusion, but the one thing that I've given a lot of thought to through this process a little bit for these future buyers and the HOAs is education, outreach to those community members. Let them know, hey, I don't want to say buyer beware. I don't want it to sound like that, but make sure that they're making a purchase with eyes wide open, you know, and I think that the township can play a role in that. So that's all I'll say on it. So
We can only play a role when the development first starts.
Right.
Then once it's built out and people are buying, we depend on the
those
realtors
subsequent
too.
phases, no.
I will say something on that comment because Brad and I both have had a conversation about that, and I am willing, and future planning coordinators should, as a township, once a year reach out to those developments that come in, because it is going to be anything moving forward in 2024. We have access to send mailings out, advise them once a month, schedule for those developments to come in, sit down with the planning department, let them know that they are a private development. Their roads, their utilities are all private, and I think that's something the township should willingly take on, because the residents are still taxpayers of our community, whether they're in a public or a private development. So I have spoken with Brad on that I think that's something that the township, as the planning department, should take on to at least keep those residents informed, because you know, we all know it's hard for them to understand even when they can't put up a fence in a condominium. So understanding the process of condominium documents are very confusing for me, even when I read them all the time. So I think that as a township, we should willingly take that on to advise them and try to keep them, because residents will sell their homes, and not always do they do a title search and get those documents. So moving forward, I think that is definitely something, and I support that with Brad, to make sure that we stay with outreach programs moving this forward.
There you go. Okay, thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Moving on to public comment. Comments limited to 5 minutes for board agenda items only. Just state the item you'll be speaking on.
Lamar Frederick, 3254 Deer Creek Drive. Mr. Supervisor, I'm just as surprised as you are. As soon as I heard just partial about this, half a dozen things jumped into my mind immediately. Barry took care of one of them. You have a water break within the so-called private area. How do you get it back into the system? The drain commissioner going to come up here and say, we haven't checked your water. We don't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent. So I'm sure somehow the engineers will fix that for a fee. My next question is, or point, we have over the years historically developed condominiums as a PUD. And we did it early simply because we wanted to be sure we could manage how this was going to be developed down the road. I don't know if you thought about changing the PUD to a condominium ordinance, which in turn then you could start laying out all of these responsibilities. Phil's good at that. And that way it becomes part of an ordinance, not a list under the PUD. Whether that has legal effect or not, I don't know. He'll have to tell you. But I also have some concerns about the township's sewer system and South County Water, because the drain commissioner holds two hats. And he comes into the South County Water as a county agency simply because of the bonds that are outstanding. Comes into our, I use our word our, sewer system because he is the county agency. So he's wearing two hats. And how's he going to do that? How's he going to tell South County Water, that's private, this is public, this is something else, and he's, you know, I have a concern now about how he's going to fit into that with those two hats. The developers are going to go nuts when they start hearing this, so put your steel underwear on. And lastly, Mr. Steiner, moratorium is going to be a lot longer than a couple weeks. You're going to have to design the new ordinances. You're going to have to put them in place. You're going to have public hearings. You're going to have to publish them. You're going to have hearings at not only the Planning Commission, but here. It's going to take some time. You're not looking at a couple months. You're looking at several months. Last question, and I'll leave it alone because I could talk for quite a while on this. Condominium PUD has been approved. The developer puts in Plat 1, comes in and says, okay, I'm ready for Plat 2, 3, and 4. Are those private? Or are they public? Which are they? Because it's after this new date. So Billy Decker, who's building over off of Adler Road, he comes in and said, I want to put my last one device. Well, that's going to be private. I don't know if that's the answer or not. Have you thought about that? Has anybody thought about it? You have. Good. Okay. Because you have Scott Boland coming in here trying to finish up his on Stearns Road. He's going to have a hot guy in here for a while. So all of those issues are going to lay on your table for a while. So if you're going to talk about moratoriums, which I think is probably the best thing for you to do until you get everything in line, but it's not going to be a couple months. You're going to be 6, 7, 8 months in here at the minimum. So I see your head going up and down. He and I have worked together for 25 years, so we know how long this stuff takes. But clearly you want to make it known, if that's true, that those condominiums that have already been approved, regardless of whether the plats have been applied for or not, are still public. Because that's going to make a big difference to a lot of the developers around here. They don't want to have that hanging over their head. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any more comments?
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. I'm also going to speak. I was going to speak to number 7, but I will move and speak about number 4. And I'm going to take a different approach on this. The reality is this is an impact of our unbridled growth. The health and safety is the health department's situation, and it is no different when a developer spoils the well water of the surrounding properties once they develop something. Developers have the people review these things, go through the process, and we need to involve this stuff when they sell these places, that they have it in bold print. But it does sound like the right people were involved in our meetings, and I'm pleased to hear that, to see that we actually had the staffing from our very valuable departments that were at these meetings. Jody, you cannot beat this girl for what she does, and it sounds like she's got a good handle on things, and I trust that she will have the best interest of the taxpayers in her reality. The developers have been doing this for a long time. You go into Tanglewood, they move in, they go in, they do all this development, they pack their bags, they fill their pockets, and they're gone. We have crumbling infrastructures in these developments. Tanglewood is a prime one. All the curbs are just rotting away. We got grass growing in the roads. It's not unlike what is already in place. Now, my question is this different between platted subdivisions or private homes? I had to dig my own trench, I had to run my own hose, and I had to hook up to the South County water. So how is that any different from what these people are going to have to do? If my water line goes bad, it's on my back. If my sewer line goes bad, it's on my back. I'm going to have to take care of what's from my home up to the road. And the thing of it is that we have to get away from dumping everything onto the county system, because they're no different than the rest of us with needing monies and staff. Our county drains, we have to petition, and the people that drain into those drains have to pay for it. The whole township doesn't pay for it, just the people that drain, whether it be indirect or direct. So the whole thing of it is that, like Mr. Goldsmith said, are we going to pay? Ms. Jandisek, I would love to know how much of our taxes go to pay for the county drain system. Their monies are just like the road commission. They get them from the state. And the state's not giving them monies. So somebody somewhere along the line, and we have all watched where our developers do not pay impact fees. So I don't know, maybe the time is right. Maybe we're seeing a new vision, but it's, it is what it is. And the condos, yes, the older people want them, but again, it's 0 lot lines. They just shove them in. And our land is becoming very sparse in this township. So this is where the developers are going to have a concern. So that's just my take on it. It's not negative. It's not positive, but I'm looking at it from a different viewpoint. I've had to take care of all this myself, and I'm not in a platted subdivision, so how am I any different, or any of the other people that live out there in the township that are on these private lots, as we call them, home, any different than what these condos would be? Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments? Okay, moving on to 8A, vouchers for payment.
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General Fund, $145,565.23. Fire District, $9,389.25. Fire Equipment, $42.07. Downtown Development Authority, $65. Library Operating Fund, $3,728.82. American Rescue Plan, $27,606. Whitman Drive SAD, $81,006.54. Building Department, $201.85. Sewer O&M Fund, $819.51. Trust and Agency Fund, $365.38. For a grand total of $268,789.65.
Support.
Okay, motion supported, Ms. Januzak. Any discussion? Okay, call the roll, please.
Hirschberger votes aye. Ms. Janusek?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Mr. Prony?
Aye, the motion passes 7-0. Item 8B, amendment to the planning and zoning fee schedule. Ms. Recker?
I won't make this long. After all the discussion, there will be additional review fees from Manneken Smith regarding the developments moving forward in January of 2024, and there will be additional legal fees. I believe that some of the discussion is the intent to make sure that any of the condo documents will also have this information provided, which is reviewed by the township attorney. So I'm just asking for the fees to be amended. I'm fine if the board wants to make it active going in forward January 1 of 2024 to coincide with the reason for the policy change. But moving forward, I know there are some reviews of the engineering fees as well. So I want to make sure that we're getting the escrows. No fee from the township is being increased. The fees are going to remain the same for the developers. It will only be for the escrows to cover outside, which would, I feel, as a planning department and as a township, should not be on back of all taxpayers, should be for the individual property owner.
Okay, anybody have any questions, comments? If not, I look for a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I'll make the motion to accept the planning fee schedule as presented effective January 1st, 2024.
Support.
Okay, motion supported, Mr. Gore. Any more discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Montry?
Aye.
Ms. Janusek?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Prony?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 8C, approval to split parcel 5802-026-024-75 and approve 2 combination and restriction agreements.
And I told Teresa from the assessing department that I was already going to be here tonight, and I familiar with this project, so I told her I would speak on behalf of it. Actually, their process of the properties, if you look at the portion of the road that has the boundary split for Comanche Trails, I believe this is part of your packet. Those were all split at one point, the rears of them. I believe lot 33 at one time, when you go through the land division and add property, you have to have your mortgage company assume it and accept it, and cost-wise, and I believe at that time the property owner was not willing or could not purchase that property to the east. So I believe then Lot 34 purchased the whole remainder because we would not create a vacant parcel. At this time, Lot 33 has been sold and purchased, and I believe moving forward, the new owner reached out to the property owner to the north and is inquiring on purchasing it. That's why they're going to rescind the existing combination restriction and just make 2 new ones for the existing 2 lots.
Okay, comments, questions? Okay, look for motion.
I'll make the motion to approve the request to split parcel 02-026-024-75 and 2 new combination restriction agreements as presented for lots 34 and 33, and the parcel to the east of those properties will be divided so they have a center line equal to the dividing line between lots 33 and 34 as presented.
Support. Okay, motion supported by Mr. Bruning. Any more discussion? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Item AD, 2024 Poverty Exemption Resolution and Guidelines.
It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
You want to take this one? You want me to? So this is the 2024 Poverty Resolution. We have to approve this every year for the poverty guidelines to take effect.
Anybody have any questions, comments? Okay, look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the poverty guideline resolutions for 2024 as presented.
Support.
Okay, motion is supported, Mr. Bruning. Any more discussion? Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Ms. Janusik?
Aye.
Mr. Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Gore?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 7-0. Item 9, comments from the public?
Gail Kane, 1056 West Temperance. I was going to speak regarding number 7. Because I had looked and read and saw where there was, I thought we weren't going to share the plans, that they were not going to sell it to him. And the realization that that 187 is specifically was the cost for the picture. So there still has to be the survey, and I was wondering who. We have local companies that are surveyors. You have Warnke, you've got the people in Toledo over there, you've got Bartolo over in Adrian. Then the contractor, are we going to bid that out? Because that's not, that name is not there. And there'll probably be a project manager. So again, there's some empty spots here looking for names and companies. And if the agreement is signed and you lay out where this place is going to sit, and it doesn't look right or doesn't fit the site, are we able to then pull that out for that design? Or will you take that design and move it to a place that's more appropriate, that fits for the turning radiuses of all the vehicles, and so it doesn't interfere with the fire tower and recycling and et cetera, et cetera. So that was my questions that I was going to. So as long as you're going to be meeting with this Mr. The architect again, maybe some of those things can be looked at and questioned. I just didn't know if you would legally be able to pull it. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments? Okay. Comments from board members? Mr. Bruning?
Everybody have a good night. Wrestling starts this weekend for Bedford, so go Mules.
Mr. Gore?
Nope, just everybody have a good, safe couple of weeks, and we'll see you here in a couple weeks.
Okay, Mr. Montroy?
Actually, yeah. I want to wish Shara Snyberg, my grandmother and lifelong Temperance resident, Grandma Shara Snyberg, happy 90th birthday.
Okay. Mr. Steiner?
Yeah, one thing tonight, I happened to catch the Channel 13 news, and I'd like to say that we should all be proud of our Bedford Public School system. They were interviewing Dr. Schultz, and Bedford Public Schools has been recognized, and they'll be partnering with the University of Toledo for their pre-engineering program starting the 25-26 school year. And they even made the comment during that interview about the excellence of Bedford Public Schools. So congratulations to Dr. Schultz and everyone that works in the Bedford Public School system. Great job and kudos to everyone. Other than that, I know some people won't necessarily see the upcoming meetings. If you don't, have a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll probably tell you that again at our next meeting, but if this is your last meeting for the year, enjoy it. And quick comment to Mr. Frederick. I don't believe I said that the moratorium could last a couple weeks. I said a moratorium until, I said we need to get some weeks in there to have people meet. But definitely this won't be resolved in a week, 2 weeks, 2 months. It's going to, I don't see a full resolution for us for a long, long time. It's going to be more than 6 months probably even. Again, I know that we're going to be hearing from our developers. I know that our full-time staff here at the township, they're going to be getting phone calls left and right. I know that some of our developers, and I won't blame them, but once they get into their laws, their bylaws, their rules, regulations of any development, whether it's a private development, site condominium development, platted PUD, et cetera, I guarantee you probably 95% of the people do not read their documents, especially when homes are sold after their original purchase. I know when I lived in Hickory Creek, there was a few times that people came to me and said, hey, we just bought this house. Do you by chance have our bylaws for our development? And I'd pull them out and I'd get them a copy. So, and again, some people don't keep them even. So it's not that they don't just not get turned over. They don't keep them. So I know that we're going to have our work cut out for us. I know Mr. Goldsmith, you'll definitely be involved in Manikin Smith and whoever and what agencies, but we need to dot every T and cross every I, and we'll be protected. I'm sure we've got enough people that have enough smarts and intelligence to make sure that we do that.
Okay. Ms. Januzak?
Winter tax bills, they were mailed out December 1st. If you have any questions regarding your bills, please contact my office. To answer Mrs. Keene's question, the only tax dollars that I am aware of that the Drain Commission receives are the funds that they are taxed, that they put on the tax bills for the drains. I'm not sure what the county operation, with the county operation fund that is on the tax bill. I'm not sure how they disperse that to the different entities. And then everybody have a wonderful rest of your week and a good weekend.
Okay. Ms. Hirschberger?
To the board, we placed the RFP out for engineering services. The deadline was December 1st. I received one bid. So I'll bring that to the board in one of the future meetings. The township newsletter came out today, so look for that in your mailbox. Residents who are interested in getting involved with your local government, now is the time to apply for boards, commissions, or to be an election worker. Clerk's Department will be out of the office on December 14th for more election training. And lastly, after the November election, Bedford was lucky enough to get chosen for an audit. So, Bedford is one of the largest voting blocks in Monroe County, so we normally get chosen for an audit. But after all the audits we've been through, we are very proficient at them. That's all.
Okay, so the new solar and wind law will come effect next November 29th. It's passed. I'm sure you all remember, not maybe 6-8 months ago, we had somebody here wanting to do a solar farm. So if you like your view, buy it, because it could be coming in the next couple of years, or will be. We're set up for it.
Trudy, if you want to, or Phil, want to relay to Jody, if solar sites can handle 50 megawatts, it's about 350 to 400 acres for site developers. So the development that came to us, I think, was roughly 900 acres. So we could probably handle, it looks like 100 megawatts. So you can apply if you do a compatible ordinance to the one that's with the state. They'll give you a one-time payment of $2,000 per watt. So you could get, if we did 100 megawatts, we'd get a couple $100,000. So there's no reason that we shouldn't do a likewise ordinance as long as it, because they're going to have one. But something to look into, and, maybe get moving on. Yeah, so, that's something I think that they, looked at through the state and, like us, turned away a lot of the potential for solar, and so this is what they've done. Now we really don't have a choice with it. So I wanted to update the board a little bit on the sidewalk with Jackman. I am extremely disappointed. One of the property owners at the apartments, Ted Peacock, won't sign the petition, the easement. It's a construction easement unless we give him $15,000 or vow to take care of the sidewalk and plow it, which I don't believe we can maintain the sidewalk and plow for individuals. So, right? So, and I expressed that to him. So I'm not so sure if the board is going to want to get into giving that kind of money to individuals, especially with the sidewalk process we're looking at going into with Douglas Road and Monroe Road and all these different sidewalks. We set a precedent by giving him $15,000. It's not a good precedence. I did express to him how disappointed I am. I think we should move forward. I've talked to the road commission and our engineers about figuring out a way, because it was only a construction easement. It wasn't actual property, take. So we're trying to figure out a way to do it without needing his blessing, but I'm not sure. We're looking into it, but yeah, I'm really disappointed. Our kids need a safe way to get to school, and there's a lot of homes that connect to the high school. They're going down Jackman, and they could have safe access to the library with crosswalks. So yeah. So other than that, we're going to continue moving forward. And just to be clear, absolutely the right people were involved. Phil, Trudy, Krista, planning, Barry, yes, I just would have liked to have been involved as well. And, after the meeting, be let know. That's all I was saying. Not saying the wrong people were involved. Very smart people, hardworking, look into stuff. They do a great job. I'm not questioning that at all. I just have a different way of going about things, and, that's it. So I'm not saying anybody's intentions were bad. Trudy and Krista work well with me. We meet on a regular basis. We talk about things, and when I found about this, like you, disappointed. So the lights will be going up in Temperance this week. I've gotten some calls. Well, why are the lights in DDA and not in Temperance? Well, the DDA is differently set up. We can have maintenance go over there and throw lights up on a ladder. We have to hire a company to do the ones in Temperance and Samaria, and we're beholden to his bucket truck. So that should be happening this week. Keep in mind, Blizzard Fest is December 16th at Compelled Church from 4 to 9. There'll be actually food that's free this year, so lots of activities happening, ice skating rink, carriage rides, movies, and food. So come on out and have a good night with your family for free. The event's been going on for quite some time now. I think this is our 6th or 7th year. So other than that, any further comments? Okay. Motion to adjourn? You're adjourned.